Oh, my name is Sabella, and welcome to Our Time, Our Voices. Today, here we have, you may say your
Hi.
name.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Brian Watts.
Yes. May you please tell us what country you are from?
Sure, I'm from the United States of America.
Yeah. And how long have you been into voice acting?
I've been in voice acting for about I would say 4 to 5 years now. 4 to 5 years roughly. I've been doing things a lot longer when it comes to, I guess, unprofessional voiceover. I mean, I've been in the industry for, I guess, in the entertainment industry for about 10 years as a writer, a community manager, and then later on as a voice actor. I first began sort of, well, very beginning stages, I was a theater arts student, and then kind of transitioned from that to high school, theater arts, of course. And then I believe in high school, I started working as a community manager for a bunch of STEAM groups, so I actually forgot some of those names. But from that, I kind of just went on to be a writer for a couple of projects, mostly non video game based, and eventually started doing video game writing. My first project was Dinosaur Battlegrounds, which turned out to be a mistake, I guess you could say, because I was the ebook writer for that game, and the owner had essentially taken the money and fled, according to what I was told. That's, you know, uh, what was assumed happened. I don't want to say anything actually happened, obviously. But after that,
Allegedly.
I started getting into, yeah, allegedly, there you go. After that, I started getting into more, voiceover. I started working on games like Five Nights at Freddy's, Overnight 2 Reboot. I did all the voices in that game. I did Final Nights 4. I did Investigator Max Donovan in that game. And then from that, I was a director for Team Infinite for years. Our team kind of did Dragon Ball Z parody animations, such as Just Saying, the comedy series. We worked with SSJ9K or Luke Carter. Um, and yeah, we just kind of did that for a while, and then I kind of transitioned from doing that to, well, kind of like I said, the Finance of Freddy stuff. And then from there, I started doing horror games. My first one, I believe, was called Project Nightmares. And from then on, it just kind of spiraled.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I
That's a
appreciate
lot!
it.
Oh
Yeah,
my god, I had to stop and go like, oh my gosh, she's still going!
it's a lot.
Damn! Oh my god. Very multi. Like, that is a long resume.
Yeah, it's very ambitious. Sometimes I kind of bite off more than I can chew, but I do my best with, with what I'm actually given.
No, I don't blame you. Like I said, I'm still aspiring, but I also would like to do some writing as well.
Hmm.
And any way I can help, because sometimes I know that they're kind of shorthanded, and it's like you need to be flexible in how you can help around, like with the staff and also the crew. Yeah, I get
Here's a
that.
question for you: have you ever done any actual voice acting before?
Mm, I've auditioned so much, and I remember doing some small things, like some small indie like horror project.
Did you actually get cast for it?
Hmm.
Then you're no longer an aspiring voice actor. You're a voice actor.
Oh, really?
Aspiring means that you one day want to become one, that you dream of being in one, but you've already done voice acting, so you'd already be a voice actor.
Even if it's free?
It doesn't matter.
Ooh.
I mean, there's an argument saying that professional voiceover is anything that's paid, which I mean, I can kind of agree with that. But in terms of voice actor versus aspiring basically means you dream of being a voice actor, but you've already done voice acting, like you just told me. So, you're no longer technically an aspiring voice actor.
After this, I'm immediately going to change to professional now. I can brag about it, saying I am a professional. And then I can see my family going like, "What have you done?" I'm like, "Only one project, but let me have this."
That's funny. But yeah,
Oh yes,
you have more confidence in yourself. That's the biggest thing, and just have fun with the whole thing as well. Like as a voice actor, the whole goal of being a voice actor is just to have fun, and we're always learning. I mean, you've got industry veterans and titans like Troy Baker and Nolan North who they still get training to this very day. Even though as many projects that they've actually been in, they still get training because there's never enough that you can learn. You're always learning, even if you think you know it, you should still learn it. If that makes any sense.
true. One thing I do know for sure is that I have like a motto saying, and I said this in like the last interview was, "You can never go to sleep without learning something new."
Hmm.
And I'm constantly always learning about like voice acting because I started doing auditions since like last June, like last year in June. And I've been
Oh, okay.
into like theater for like most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely understand. There's like so many things I had not known and learned, and I'm always excited to learn. So learning all this kind of makes me happy talking to you.
Good to hear.
I think that's the wonderful thing I really like about well doing this podcast right now is that I get to learn so many different types of people and new things, and it just makes me go like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that." And you get to see so many different colors of things that you didn't know.
Right.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
yeah, you're 100% you're 100% right when you say that. I mean, there's all kinds of people out there, cultures, diversities, all that stuff, and I love getting to learn and get to know more about people.
Exactly. That's the fun part. That's the fun part. Okay. The next
Exactly.
question is, what inspired you to get into voice acting?
So my story is a little bit different. Well, maybe a little bit different, comparable to some others. I know some people who have been basically saying that you listen to anime, you watch anime that you love, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously, I grew up on anime like Inuyasha, Dragon Ball,
Hmm.
Big O, things. Fully Cooley, for example. I know some of the voice actors that actually voiced in Fully Cooley, which is really cool.
Cool.
But I mean, growing up on that was really awesome. But honestly, what inspired me to want to do voiceover was actually playing video games. And it's not probably the kind of video games you're thinking of. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. There was a game years ago on PlayStation 1. This is how old I am. Called Medal of Honor. Medal of Honor to me was the quintessential World War II video game. Particularly, it was Medal of Honor Underground, I believe was what it's called. It's where you played
Hmm.
as a French spy, I believe, in the Resistance, and you essentially played as, I think her name was Manon Baptiste. I think that was what her name was. I'm not 100% certain.
Ooh.
But I remember playing that game and like falling in love with um, oh god, I'm gonna butcher his name. Um, was it Michael Giard? Oh gosh, the composer who did Medal of Honor. He also did the new Godzilla movies, if I'm not mistaken,
Wow.
and some of the new Star Wars movies as well. But Michael Giacchino, Michael, I think his name is Michael Giacchino. I know his last name was Giacchino. I don't know if it was Michael or something else.
It's I
But
can't. I'm dyslexic. I can't say anything. So I
oh
butcher names all the time.
you're fine. You're fine. I'm the same way. If I can't remember the actual name properly said, I'll completely butcher it.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of grew up on those kind of games, and I wanted to kind of tell the stories of those kind of projects, but for like the modern audience. So I grew up on like Medal of Honor, Resident Evil, Dino Crisis, which these games are probably going to terrify most audiences who've ever played Dino Crisis. I mean, back in the day, Dino Crisis was terrifying because you see the giant Velociraptor jump on the fence, and as a kid, the first thing you do is run. um, and like when I was playing Resident Evil, I mean, honest to God, when I first saw the menu screen and heard that music, I didn't even play the press start button. I just kind of was like, nope, I'm good. Music's already scary enough. I'm good. Um, but I kind of wanted to sort of relay the idea that these stories were telling, or like just the stories in general, but for like a modern audience. Ironically, I wanted to tell stories to kids, but most of the projects I have voice center for adults, like not like that kind of adult. I'm talking about like World War II horror games, things
Like a
like that.
mature audience, like for them to understand.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got to kind of specify that. um, but yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to be a voice actor, was because of that, but also because I kind of grew up in it as well. Theater arts kind of teaches you improv, which is really important when it comes to voiceover. I mean, not just voiceover, just acting in general. Improv is one of the probably the most important thing I can preach when it comes to acting, because a lot of times you work with developers who may or may not speak English as their primary language, and they may or may not have the best script. So improv is essential in that, because that means you can, and I don't want to ever recommend somebody to go beyond the script, or, don't do what's on the script, especially if the developer knows what they're talking about. But sometimes you have that situation where a project owner, a project developer, director, or whatever, they may not know the exact saying to, I guess, say in English. So knowing improv is very important when it comes to learning, how to, I guess, transcribe what they're trying to relay, but in a better term of, I guess, English speaking, if that makes any sense.
That actually does make sense because of the fact that English is such a complicated language, and then you got different types of English from, like, Australia and, like, the UK and just, like, different other countries as well. Like,
Hmm.
I would had to teach my brother and sister, like, some of the UK from, the UK, like, English when they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, yeah, like, scones are, like, the equivalent to biscuits," and then you can't say, like, pants because it just means underwear.
Hmm.
And then I was
Exactly.
also telling them in Australia, the Barbie just means barbecue.
Right. Exactly.
And they were like, "Really? Really?" And they're like, "Yeah." It's just so complicated, and especially since we have the internet, it's more broader and more wider that you
Hmm.
can't help but feel like there's gonna be some cultural misunderstandings, but it's like we learn, we try to like make things like default. So improv actually does work really well, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
oh
off
no, no,
there.
it's okay. It was just the next question.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The next question is, what are your favorite type of roles?
My favorite types of roles are, well, I've sort of been typecast in these kind of roles so far. I guess really military shooters I've kind of been typecast in because I have a natural Southern drawl. So a lot of military developers, directors like that kind of thing because obviously with a natural Southern drawl, you have more of a deeper voice usually for barking and things like that, which is great because now I can be like a dog. I'm just messing with you. Um, but I've kind of been typecast in, FPS, TPS, which is third person shooter, video games, as
Mhm.
well as survival horror and psychological horror games, which I have no problem with because I do like those kind of games. Do I like playing them? Hell no. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to curse, but,
Nah, it's
no.
nah, it's fine. You can curse.
Okay. Well, do I like this kind of games? I do. Do I like playing them? No, I like watching other people play them because it's funny. Um, but I've sort of been typecasted in that kind of role. I have nothing against it at all, and you do get typecasted in some roles, especially if you have um, a definite accent, I guess you could say. For Southern drawl or for like Southern American, it's usually for FPS roles usually, but it's other things as well that you can get typecasted for. Um, but I would love to just play a role that has a character that has really good story development to it. I don't really necessarily require or really want, I guess you could say, I don't have a strong desire to be the next Kirito from Sword Art Online, if that makes any sense. Would I welcome the opportunity? Yeah, I would. Would I be mad if I didn't? No. I'm happy that I get to play these roles that I've been, so I guess thankful to actually have so far. Um, and I just kind of wanted to improve on that situation itself, where I would just want to have a role where I can essentially bring a character's full emotions to life. There was a game a while back I did voice work for from Brian Clark, who did Mortuary Assistant. I actually voiced on that game as well. There was a game called Cohate, and the thing about working with directors that know what they're actually doing is because they know what they're actually doing and that they can actually relay how you're supposed to actually feel and how you're supposed to actually act. I think a funny part was we had an interview one time where me and Brian were talking with the other cast of the Mortuary Assistant, and they were asking like, "What's the most realistic thing you've done during a voiceover recording?" And I told the story of how Brian told me that I needed to sound like I was choking, so I told Brian I literally grabbed the belt in the studio and wrapped it around my face and started like strangling myself with it, and he's like, "Are you are you okay?" I was like, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm." And I'm like,
One way of doing
he's
it. That's one way of doing it.
yeah, Mark Hamill calls it method acting. I call it suffocation. um, but yeah, things like that is really important because it brings your character to life because you can actually put yourself in that character's footsteps full heartedly. I would just like an opportunity to voice characters that actually have a real backstory, real character development. Whether it's a antagonist, a protagonist, or even side characters for that matter. As long as there's a really good development arc, and I can actually feel something for the actual character, I actually would love to do that.
That's actually, oh, you already answered what was going to be the next question. It was going to be a surprise question I like give people, but it's like basically what type of characters would you like to do, but you already did it. And that's really interesting. I can't help but like be fascinating, and I hopefully that does come to you. And
Thank you. I
I'm really
appreciate that.
genuinely surprised that you haven't had that because I don't know, your voice is kind of like it sounds more laid back right now and talking. And it
Well,
kind
I
of sounds like
appreciate
it
it.
could be used as like, I don't know, maybe someone from the South turning having to have a good character arc where they have to be more stronger and more mentally strong and they've seen things in war. It's kind of like the prequel of it.
I've seen things you can't even imagine. There you go, stuff like that.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. But that's
But yeah,
really
I really do
interesting.
appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. If I can ask you the same question, I mean, obviously you've voiced in projects before. So what are you? I kind of reverse interview.
Oh,
uh, what
you're
are your
uh
goals when it comes to voiceover?
you're pulling a Mr. Rogers on me.
Exactly.
Mostly I've done like kid roles. I would
Okay.
like to do more kind of like preteen boy roles or like more
Hmm.
androgynous roles, but I'm pretty much fine.
Okay. I mean, that's good. I mean, are there any sort of particular? I guess I'm trying not to like reverse the interview back on you. Kind of like, are there any any roles that you would love to have? Any dream jobs? I guess you could say.
There is a dream role I have, and I don't know, and the anime is on Crunchyroll, but it hasn't been in English dub. And I want to get this role so bad, but I feel like if I say it, I'll jinx myself. But it's
That's
to the
fair.
point where I don't care if my rate is a penny less. It's just that I desperately want this role because I'm so passionate about this character.
Hmm.
And and the thing is that everybody thinks because I live like in Southern California, I could easily get the character, but it's like, no, you got to have those connections.
Yeah, I've got my own personal opinion on that. Well, the whole studio versus remote talent thing.
I kind of get
Just
that.
because.
Like, I live near Disneyland,
Hmm.
so you would think I would get more experiences, but no. And the thing is that this character is like so special and so important to me, and I'm just willing to do whatever it takes. But like I said, I feel like if I say this character, I feel like I'm gonna jinx it
Hmm.
because this is the character. This is my dream like role more than anything.
I can understand that. The best thing I can tell you is shoot for the stars and never give up.
Hmm. Oh, but there is one character role I don't mind saying because I don't think Crunchyroll has the rights anymore. I think it's on Asian Crush, so I can say this one.
Okay.
It's kind of like it. This is the role. This is the character role that where I don't mind if I get it, but if I do, I'd be happy. It's an anime I think that came out in the early 2010s called Kobato.
Kobato?
Yes, it was like an anime. It's basically I don't know if you've ever heard of like this other anime called Cardcaptor Sakura.
I have not.
Have you ever heard of this other anime called Magic Knight Right Earth?
I'm sorry, I don't. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the biggest fan of anime. I do like it, but I'm not the biggest
No,
fan.
that's
I
fine.
guess you
That's
could.
fine. Well, basically,
Yeah.
the people who like made those like animes are like they're kind of like they have like multiple like anime like works. They have like projects and things like that. And they're the anime Kawato. I would really love to enjoy like voicing the
Hmm.
English dub because I don't think it's an English dub. But if it happens, if it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like another thing as well is that I would love to for for American cartoons. Um, I this is gonna be a really big one, but if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right. Okay.
There's
I mean,
this character from Big City Greens. I think she's only appeared in one episode, and I think that was the very first episode, the pilot episode. And there's this
hmm
woman like in the subway holding a snake. She's only appeared in
hmm.
like one episode. I don't think she's appeared again in Big City Greens, but I don't know if they're gonna have her character again or if they need her voice again. But it's like, damn, I'm willing to be open for that character voice for her to be a regular here and there because I love Big City Greens. I love Big City Greens. It's like a really good cartoon for me.
Well, that's good to hear. Actually, I mean, I always say to people, don't give up on your dreams and shoot for the stars.
Hmm. Video games, I'm more open to. I am as
Mm-hmm.
well. The thing about video games is that I tend to improv, but I know that you said it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that because I have dyslexia, sometimes I tend to like skip words and add words in. And
Mm-hmm.
then I remember my theater teacher, he was saying like for some it's okay to improv and for some it's not, depending on what type of director you have. Because some of
Right.
them actually have the precise like lines and some of it is not. And especially if you're going to be voicing like some like traditional like lines, like if it was took place during the Shakespeare time.
Um. So improv is more or less for, uh, I guess, I would say two things really. In
Hmm.
case, like I mentioned earlier, if you don't have like an English speaking developer or director,
Hmm.
obviously improv is going to be important for that. But obviously, if the character itself needs to, there's some projects out there that the act what is it? It's made for the actor per se instead of
Hmm.
the actor's made for it. Basically, it basically means that a character was developed or direct or created for this particular actor because this actor's personality or persona fits the character so well that they want to actually make this new character for this actor. Those are rare, but when it happens, they're a golden. It's like a golden goose, basically.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I believe that happened with Robin Williams and Genie. They said that they chose Robin Williams as Genie because when
mhm.
they were creating Genie, they used Robin Williams as like can't stand up comedy like voice lines for the character.
Okay, yeah, you might be right with that.
Yeah, that I remember that with Robin Williams and Genie.
Hmm. But yeah, improv is important. Um, but of course, you don't want to like step beyond the lines of what the developer actually wants, the director. I
Hmm.
would always ask the director, do you care if I make some subtle changes? If they say no, then you have to honor their, you have to honor their, I guess, their decision. And if you don't, then you're kind of, you're kind of stepping over the red line a little bit. If that makes any sense.
And you don't mean to, and you're just like, I please, I'm just trying here. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Um,
that reminds me, I
I will
forgot.
always.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, mine is a completely different question, like jumping into a different topic.
Fair enough. I was just gonna say that 9 times out of 10, it's a bad script over a bad artist or like a bad actor.
Oh,
So
really?
basically, that means that if the script is bad, it may reflect poorly on the actor, unless the actor is really able to you know read into the script and give their best performance and try and make this actually sound good. A lot of times, it's a bad script before it's a bad actor.
It's actually really true because there's been some like roles I've seen people, especially with my favorite movie reviewer on YouTube, people say like normally this actor or like this voice actor is like really good, but it
Hmm.
couldn't be that well with the script. So that does happen a lot, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, getting on to what you were saying, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, it's fine. Mine was basically about, do you notice any differences like when it comes to the directing or like kind of like I don't want to say vibe, but it's like when you're voicing for like first person shooter, like the shooting games versus like horror games, what exactly are the differences are you given directions about?
Um, so that all depends, really. Depending on what who the director actually is.
Hmm.
Most directors will just give you a brief summary of, for example, I'm just gonna say a random name for a project I voiced in. Parentheses. David is confused. He's scared. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Essentially, they're just trying to give you an idea of what's going on with this character and what you need to relay in terms of the turn, like the line reading, if that makes any sense. So
Hmm.
usually, how it works is, for most like the horror games that I've voiced in, at least, for paragraph they'll have like a parentheses and explain to you in brief, what the character's actually feeling or what they're actually doing. Now, your job as the actor is to relay that into actual emotional feeling. So, for example, um, Sorry, my AC's on right now. It's kind of hot in the studio, so I apologize for the sound. I'm just gonna
Oh,
give you
that's
a
fine.
quick
I have my AC
sound
in the
bite if that's
background
cool.
too.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a quick sound bite. So let's say, for example, um, I'm being chased through well, I want to say a castle, but we're just gonna say like a hallway, and the killer is right behind me. The line says, "What do you want from me?" But it's got like question mark exclamation point. At that point, what I'm realizing is that this is a yell. This is a full-on scream. So I'm not gonna say, What do you want from me?" I'm gonna be more like this. What do you want from me? More like that, where it's like, sorry if there's any kind of popping. I'm just kind of messing with my game while doing that, so I didn't bust your eardrums out.
It's okay.
um, so at that point, I'm kind of relaying what I hear or what I can read clear as day, and then I'm relaying that back into emotional acting or acting in general. Emotional acting is what you, the actor, can do. Um, there's no such thing as emotional acting. Like, emotional acting is what actually happens. Like, if the acting is emotional, then it's emotional acting. But if you can't do emotional, like if you can't do emotional, then it's not going to be emotional acting. A lot of times I use the Mark Hamill method, which is of course called method acting. It's basically where you put yourself in the character's footsteps and you do what the character's actually doing. So, for example, if I'm in a fighting game, I'll put myself in a fighting stance and I'll actually like do a jab in the studio to sort of put myself in that footstep. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that I do like doing method acting because it is really good when it comes to kind of putting yourself in that character's shoes.
I can see that. When I was doing my theater acting, I was having to play like a character that was kind of like a drug addict,
Mm-hmm.
but also as well, it was basically a pretend drug addict that was actually secretly a cop. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is that I had to think about like the method acting of when like of when I was studying kind of like from like I want to say TV shows, but I've also studied as well online about like what are the tail signs of like kind of like scratching of the skin, like the red shot eyes and things like that.
Right.
So I had
Yeah.
to do my research. So I kind of get it. And then I also remember going like, oh yeah, I remember that one week I didn't take my medication and I remember that. So I had to think about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. It was very wild and I hated that week. I was changed onto different medications. Absolutely horrible week. It was during the summer as well.
I gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing as well is that I wanted to ask is that when you did theater acting, what kind of theater did you do?
What do you mean?
Like, did you ever like for oftentimes for theater acting, sometimes they will focus more on like sometimes musicals, sometimes more focused on like based on books or just like things that were made from movies, things like that,
Um,
or just small like theater like
we
place.
did like Shakespeare. I'm pretty sure we did like Shakespeare, but in terms of anything else, not really per se. A
Hmm.
lot of it was just kind of like, regular acting, kind of improv and things of that nature. Um, Maybe there was some like uh, kind of uh, musicals, but I didn't get involved in that part.
Still can't sing, so I can't do musicals.
Yeah, there you go. That was my excuse as well.
I would love to learn how to sing, and I've actually done a couple of singing classes at my college.
Hmm.
I still can't sing.
Neither can I, so don't feel
I was
bad.
like, no, and it sucks because I actually do have song lyrics, and I'm like, no.
Hey,
Uh,
neither can I, so don't feel bad about it.
one day, but today is not that day.
Exactly. Well,
Well, one day. Okay, here's
but
another question for you. So I have like a friend in Virginia, and he's
okay.
also in Virginia. He was also telling me about how there's like a lot of like places where you can see like the battlefields and things like that. He also says like jokes around to saying that it's mildly haunted. Would you agree or disagree?
I have experienced hauntings in Gettysburg, so I would agree.
You know what? I'm gonna take out some salt when I get there. I don't care. I'm taking out the salt.
That's fair, but yeah, any kind of battlefield usually is going to be haunted because you've got death. I mean, there's no other way to sugarcoat it. I mean, you've got thousands of men that have died in brutal combat, and some of the combat is brutal. I mean, just imagining like a lot of them died not just from the bullet and the gunshot wounds, but because of the infections themselves. You got to remember that these cartridges, these bullets, um, they would usually have bacteria in them already. Not only that, but you've also got to realize that you're in mud and you've got open bullet wounds and you've got pretty much no kind of morphine. Well, you've got morphine, but you don't have antibiotics like you do in the modern era. Their version of antibiotics was amputation, which there was a lot of amputation. In fact, more actually died from amputation than a lot of the actual injuries themselves. Um,
I was born in the right era.
exactly, I think we all were.
Yeah. Oh my
But
goodness. Have you ever done like a video game where it actually takes place during the time of like the of the Civil War?
I actually have.
Really?
Was it? It was what was the game called? It's actually on my website. Let me just Google it real fast. Grand Tactician American Civil War, or the Civil War 1861 to 1865 Grand Tactician. I voiced the CSA NCOs, which basically means non-commissioned officers for the Confederate States of America, but I also voiced the regular soldiers as well.
Wow. Did you ever have to like come out and say and tell the director going like I live in this state so I know what I'm talking about? Or not exactly?
Yeah, that's actually how I kind of got the role was because Virginia
Oh.
is a battleground state. It was an actual huge battleground state during the Civil War, obviously because Robert E. Lee actually lived here, and that's actually the reason why he fought for the South was because his family was in Virginia. He didn't want to fight either North or South. He just wanted to live with his family, and that's the whole thing people don't seem to understand is that Robert E. Lee actually fought the North because he couldn't deal with the idea of fighting his own family. A lot of places were like that, unfortunately, or a lot of people were like that, unfortunately, was because they didn't want nobody wanted the war. Um, it really was unfortunate because it was brother versus brother, and it's people that you may have grown up with from another area are now your enemy. And when you think about it like that, it's really tragic.
Reading that as well. When I was learning about the Civil War, in my class they would often talk about like how many of them had to fight against each other, and especially since they had relatives from the north and some from the south,
Hmm.
and they just didn't want to fight against each other, but they had to, unfortunately.
Exactly. And there was actually moments where they would actually have stalemates, and they would actually eat and drink together. Believe it or not, like the North and the South would actually have camps, and when they're not in actual skirmishes, they would actually sit there and have drinks and eat food and everything else with each other. These were truce area, like these were times of truce, but they weren't like it's very odd because you've got to realize that you're drinking with the enemy, but at the same time, the enemy is your brother and like he's your actual, you know, he's an American citizen, and it's like it's very difficult to think about it. But there were moments where they did have peaceful situations like that, where they would literally sit there and dine together, mostly across rivers and things like that.
It's always so tragic, but at least it helps you remind about a little bit of the humanity in there.
Yeah, no, it really was tragic. I mean, the whole
Mhm.
story itself is just tragic. That's
Yeah.
really the biggest thing is you got hundreds of thousands of soldiers that just died. Um, yeah, it's it's tragic, but eh, the war was fought for a good reason.
Hmm. One more question as well.
Sure.
Is there really random graveyards around different places?
What do you mean?
See, my friend, he was telling me about how there was like a graveyard next to like a little bit away from a preschool. And
Um,
I was like,
are you
sometimes,
talking about like Civil War graveyards, or are you talking
yeah,
about like just in general? Yeah. So you've got to look at places similar to like Gettysburg, for example, or Antietam, where there was hundreds of thousands of men that died.
yeah, he lives in Richmond.
Um, well, you've got Richmond battlefield, you've got Fredericksburg battlefield. what else? Petersburg. There's a lot of battlefields in that area. But yeah, very likely. I mean, you've got people that died in fields that may or may not have actually been buried. I mean, um, there are random grave sites and gravestones where people have been shot and killed during the Civil War. I mean, a war is a war, and that's the biggest thing. Is like you think of like Germany, for example, or like Europe, just an example. I can't even imagine how many grave sites are in Belgium, France, Germany, Ukraine. I
Poland.
mean, exactly, yeah. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And I'm not just talking about like the soldiers. Imagine the Jews as well that got burned alive. I
Mm,
mean, there were mass graves that were just created in Auschwitz. I mean, I can't even imagine how haunted Auschwitz is.
I completely forget how hot it can be over there. And then
Oh yeah,
I even forget as well about like, especially since I know that the climate is changing over there, and including how warm it is, and they don't have ACs in there as well.
yeah. It's slowly moving to a part of Tornado Alley, which is kind of terrifying to think about.
I live in an area where there's no, I don't think there's no tornadoes, but we do have lots of earthquakes, and both are pretty terrifying.
Yeah, the big one.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know what I want. What I want to fly, or what I just want to shake.
That's
Both are
funny.
pretty
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, that's true.
There are natural disasters in every single corner.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then again, I think the tsunami would be my worst one because I don't know how to swim.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to deal with a tsunami.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know how
But
to
then again,
float either.
I wouldn't really want to deal with either one actually, tsunami or earthquake or you know, tornado.
In earthquakes, we're told to like stand under like the doorway because that way nothing can hit us.
That's a fair. Yeah, we did tornado drills when I was in school as well.
Yeah. And I remember, oh, but I do remember that I think California one time had a fire tornado or fire hurricane once.
That's terrifying. Even worse.
Yep. I was trying to joke around with my brother because luckily there was no deaths, I think, that happened in there. If there's no deaths that happen in the occurrence, I like to joke around, saying like,
Mm-hmm.
wonder how much meat I can put in there and see how much it'll come out cooked.
That's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I kind of want steak right now. Actually, I also want mac and cheese with the steak, or maybe a baked potato. Sorry, I'm just like, it's kind of like getting to dinner time. But I was like, wait a minute, it's actual dinner time over there.
Yeah, it's around 7 o'clock here in the states or in Virginia.
Oh yeah, have you eaten dinner?
Yeah, I've already eaten.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. I was told by my doctor that it's good to eat before 6 o'clock. I don't know why. I don't know. It has something to do with the digestive system. I'll figure it out one day. And to the back to the voice acting thing.
Any more
Ah,
questions? Or
yes, I do. So,
by the
do
way,
you
is
go
this
to?
going on YouTube or is this going on like a Spotify
Oh no, it's
podcast?
going on YouTube.
Okay.
The thing is that, like I said, it's easier because it's in September. Everybody's more relaxed. Everybody can listen to more things. Da 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 da.
Right. Mm-hmm.
One more thing as well. Do you
Okay.
go to an actual studio or do you have a home studio?
I have my own home studio, but it's pretty much a professional home studio. I spent around, I want to say 5,000 to build it.
Good lord.
It's got, yeah, it's got all the professional equipment in it.
I would have to give up a kidney for that.
You'd be surprised. It'd be a lot cheaper than going around using or buying the studios that you can purchase like individually. All you
That
got to
is
learn is
that
some
is
carpentry
true.
stuff.
Yeah, I remember I was trying to like come to like one professional studio because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to work on my demo reel. He costed $300 half an hour.
Well, that's just because that's a studio fee, but you can actually build your own studio, and I mean, you'd be probably spending around, I want to say 3,000 minimum, which is not that much comparable to buying a studio bricks.
I actually live in an apartment complex, so I'm just using my indoor closet.
That's fine too.
Hmm. Which is okay. At
Mm-hmm.
least I hope, because there's like a lot of clothes, so the sound bounces off easily.
Hmm.
I think that's a good thing. I was told that by a sound engineer. At least that's what I remember. The reason I was asking about home studio is because I have a pet cat,
Mm-hmm.
and she tries to like climb on the sound blankets. And I'm like, no, Kiki, get off the sound blankets. Do you have a pet?
I have a couple pets actually.
Oh, really? What are their names? What are they?
They're dogs and cats. You've got
Oh,
Molly, uh, Harper, and Chase, which are all my dogs. And you've got the cats are Star, uh, Kendall, Grits, and Chip, and Asia.
have an army. You'll have a
Hmm.
literal fluffy army.
Roughly, yeah.
You could actually make a video game from that. The Fluff Army.
Exactly.
The reason I was asking that is because it's like she's really, really cute, and she's like nearly gonna be 5 months old. But I'm like, get off the sound blankets.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, I have another cat, and he's like 11 years old. But luckily, he doesn't do much with the sound blankets except like, oh, okay, except like the thing is that he just kind of like sleeps on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and because of that, it is the end of our time.
Well, I appreciate the interview. Any more questions for me at all?
Well, like one more as well.
Okay.
Do you have any projects? Do you have any like shout outs? Because and also in the description box we'll be having your website and anything that you would like to advertise and say.
You said shout outs, or are you talking about like projects I'm working on currently?
Yes, that.
Currently, I'm working on Gates of Hell Airborne, which I mean, it's also known as Gates of Hell Liberation, and this is the Airborne DLC with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on that. I'm bringing in a couple of veteran voice actors for that one. I'm the voice director for the Elden Ring anime. I'm the voice director for the Realm of Thrones, Game of Thrones mod for Bannerlord.
My
We're actually
goodness.
going to be bringing in a bunch of voice actors from Twitter soon, or from, well, I'm gonna bring in the voice actors that that sound the best when it comes to Game of Thrones, and then I'm also gonna be trying to bring in voice actors from other avenues as well, just to play minor roles as well. I've got other projects in the works, and that's all I can discuss currently. There are, like I said, there are projects in the work, but I can't really discuss them outright currently.
Okay. And I will be like I said, I'll be putting in the description box about like your website and everything. And thank you so much for coming in. I hope to work with you in the future. It was really nice talking to
Sounds great.
you.
Yeah, you too. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
If you ever have any small roles, I'm right here.
I'll be sure to remember that.
Thank you.